again, you became a glassmaker of note and played an important role in that area in the Soviet system.
Yeah.
Yes. And
satellite, Czechoslovakia was a satellite of the Soviet Union.
And I want to jump now. The glassmaking here is very interesting, but we don't have time to really go into that. But you were an excellent problem solver. And tell us about your trip to Cuba, which is
It took 20 years in a communist country where I couldn't get married. All my mail was checked. Letters were coming, envelopes were coming opened, and every phone call listened to, which means that I lived in a very again borrowed time, dangerous time, and they tried to catch me somehow.
Yes.
Because in the communist system it was no mistakes. They were either sabotage or trying to undermine socialist economy or socialist system and so on, which means that this is how I work. I couldn't get married, I didn't have social life, and in that terrible system, surrounded by envious people and people tried to get me, I made my PhD, studied 3 years at the university while I was working at the industry. 1 day a week I went back to the university, and I made it. In 3 years I became a PhD, it was called candidate now. I made about 20 published articles. I was able to do research work under conditions of 3,000 degrees, where everything would melt, all scientific instruments would melt. I had to invent my instruments and make science out of something which was traditionally art of copying old recipes and repeating them. When they sent me to Cuba to fix glass factories which were not working for 3 years, they get all kinds of experts and they couldn't run them.
They needed the glass for the beer bottles.
They needed the glass for what they call the refresco, like a tropical country needs soft drinks to sustain a population, and they didn't have bottles. And they had one factory making flat glass, car glass and mirrors and things like that. Which means that they sent me there to fix that flat glass, because this was 70 years of experience, and it was like a noblest of glass, because the most sensitive and most difficult to make mechanical.
Yes.
It was full process.
So they said that if you didn't do it,
if I didn't do it in 6 weeks, which means that this was really a very. I didn't want to go because I knew that it was a death sentence.
that they would do that.
And they said, if you are refusing to go, you become a parasite in a socialist country, and you go into labor camp.
And you were You were married at this point.
I have been married not even a year, but 3/4 of a year.
And they sent
June.
They sent you there with your wife.
Wife, because who was supposed to work there for longer than 6 months, had to take partners because the local population was very jealous.
Yes.
South American.
So you worked there, and just again, I'm rushing a little bit, but.
And in 6 weeks, I spoke Russian perfectly, and there were thousands of Russians there. Most of them were military people disguised as specialists, but there were a lot of engineers, and they were trying to find uranium and all kinds of minerals in Cuba. And this was.
But you were able to figure out the system in 6 weeks.
I was able to figure out the system, to fool the system, because they didn't give us ration tickets for the first months, almost starving us to death. It was a conflict between Dubček, who ruled Czechoslovakia, tried to make a communism with human face, and Fidel Castro. Czechoslovakia asked for some money, Fidel refused, and in that conflict they decided to refuse food to 5 couples to blackmail Czech government. And we were one of those
You're
5.
one of those. You're
And
fortunate one.
because of my Russian, I was able to figure out and sneak into Russian cafeteria,
And get some food.
pretending to be Russian until they caught me, and simply we survived that month, and after a month they gave me food because Naomi's father was a lawyer in Czechoslovakia and sued the government for breaking the contract because they were supposed to give me shelter and food and some
good things.
and some little money, you know, $5,000 a year, no less. But almost $5,000 a year, which was a huge amount of money where we made.
So you figured it out, and then tell us about.
And I fixed the three glass factories, and they worked like charm. 9 months later, we were flying back to Czechoslovakia. It was 1968. 1968 in August, 500,000 Soviet soldiers took over Czechoslovakia again because the Prime Minister was also a chairman of Communist Party, head of Communist Party. He tried to make communism with a human face, and it was no such thing. He tried to humanize the system and improve the economy somehow, which was really on the level, on the bottom. The Soviet intervention, 2% were for Russians, 98% against. And in December, it was December 13, we are supposed to fly back.
To this
cauldron. I had a choice. They gave me a cube. It was one airplane was Czechoslovak, and one airplane was Cuban. They gave me the Cuban one because nobody escaped from Cuban one. I didn't want to switch it because they might have found out that I had some intentions. If I had chosen, they would have asked questions and why and so on, which means that I let it be. We were flying back to Cuba. In an airport in Ireland where it refueled, there were no sign, immigration office. I was already flying twice. I saw them when somebody tried to escape, they hit him over the head, dragged him into the airplane, because passengers believe somehow if the airplane waiting room is in Ireland or in Canada, that it's a Canadian territory. It is not. In a waiting room in the airport, responsibility for the passengers is fully pilot of the airplane. The people didn't know it because I was flying to Cuba, and I was flying from Cuba and from Cuba back. I flew twice, and I observed all the rules and customs and whatever was happening there. In Ireland there was no immigration office. I couldn't apply for asylum. In Canada, in Ghana, very far north, on a little island, it was an immigration office. Airplanes were very bad, old, and propeller, and they had to refuel twice. But if the wind was right, weather was right, they could have flown from Ireland straight to Havana, or to go to Canada and then make a last leg. In Ireland, I behaved very naturally. We came out, deboarded, boarded the plane again, and continued the second leg. In Canada, they said they need a few hours to repair the airplane because a week before they lost an engine. It fell off. It was also a station where they exchanged spies and things like that, very likely. But anyway, the repair took them 4 hours. For 4 hours, I was jovially debating nonsenses with the 100 Cubans and 2 of us. And it was an immigration office. I never ever looked even once to that corner. But I sent Noemi to buy a Coke, 50 cents, in a machine, and coin machine. They gave her back $4.50. and it was. She was saying, yeah, it is an immigration office in the corner, but she didn't know we would escape because she was an innocent 23, 24 years old girl. She was already a land surveyor with an engineering degree, but very smart, but not a good comedian or artist as I was able to pretend whatever.
Yes.
She was not able to pretend. I worried that she would say something. After 4 hours of waiting in the room, they told us, okay, airplane is ready, refueled and repaired, and we can go. Which means I was waiting until 100 Cubans were in front of us, and we were moving as a crowd into the corridor leading to the outside, and airplane was outside parking in snow, because it was this December snow in Canada. They had to plow the route between the airplane and then plow little space. It was a propeller that didn't need a large running space to take off. And I told Noemi, slow down, slow down, slow down, as we were walking as a crowd there. And we were the last ones in the one-way door closed. I told her, follow me. And we were running back into the office of the immigration officer. The room was empty, waiting room was empty, Cubans were in the airplane, and nobody was there to hit me over the head and drag me into the airplane. And this was my
your plan.
We went to the small room, not larger than 2 desks, and one desk was there with a typewriter, and he said, I was waiting. He was speaking French. It was French Canadian. It was French territory, and he took our passports and typed our names on a piece of sheet, which was in the typewriter, and we were standing in the room, and 6 big guys with guns entered, the room saying, we are pilots from the airplane, and let's go. And I said, my wife became ill. I spoke Spanish. My wife became ill. We will join you next week. But they saw the passport, and they saw immigration office, and they saw our names on it. And they said, okay, let's go. Don't play games.
They just left you.
What?
They just left you.
No, I was in the room.
I understand that.
And
they had no jurisdiction.
The guy, the officer, immigration officer, saying very old man, was about 70, and he was making extra money by sitting there. And when we came in, saying, I was watching you, you were different, you were blue-eyed. How come you didn't come? But I'm happy you finally arrived. And I didn't tell him the plan because the guy came and said, okay, let's go. And I said, my wife is sick and so on. And they said, no. And the guy telling me, don't move from this room because it's the only Canadian territory. The waiting room is not. But this is a sign of immigration office. I'm a Canadian, and it's the only Canadian territory. If you move out of this room,
they'll arrest you.
If you take half a foot out of this room through the threshold in the door,
they will take you.
They grab you.
Wow. And
we were standing behind him, and they were coming for the next 4 hours with suggestions. You want to have your luggage? I said, sure, I have a ticket, a stamp on my ticket. And they said, we put all the luggage along the airplane. All you have to do is to lean over and tell us which one is yours.
Yes.
Or pick it up. Yeah. And he's saying, you just put half of your foot, of your shoe out of this room.
Wow.
And they grab you.
Wow.
And I said, okay, no deal. Right. Oh, you put bomb into the luggage. Wow. Tell us how it looks.
Absolutely.
And so it took 4 hours with all kinds of tricks. Right. They called Havana. They probably called Castro. Right. Should we grab them anyway?
Yeah.
And it's very likely Fidel Castro told them it's the only way to Europe. Don't do it.
Yeah.
And
The
Canada
only
is
way
the
to
only.
Europe.
Yeah, it was the only
Right.
airport, so the
Yeah.
Americans would not talk to them.
Yeah,
Americans
yeah,
would not allow it. And
Yeah.
Canada didn't want to. Montreal or some big.
Right.
It was very far north, and they,
Right.
I don't know how the kind of money they gave them.
Right.
But Canada was a little bit socialistic
Right.
and flirting with them.
So you figured out the system once
Which means
again.
that if I made one single mistake that night, one single mistake, I was carrying 10 kilograms of platinum. You know how much money it is, probably $1 million or two or three. Because I was making research to drill holes into glass furnace and
Right.
bubbles through,
So
bubble air through.
where was the platinum?
In my luggage.
Oh.
And if I had an idea to steal or to take one of those rods
Right.
into my pocket, I could have lived the rest of my life in comfort.
Oh.
But I didn't even think of that. It didn't even cross my mind to do that. And this saved me because one tiny second losing attention or the avert attention to something else, but I would have made a mistake, tiny mistake, and it would have cost me the rest of my life or my life immediately. Anyway, it took 4 hours of haggling back and forth until they said, you know, we have to leave. Give us a stub for your luggage. And I said, ha ha ha. The guy was telling me, you know, in 1 week we will make more money than whatever you could have possibly in your luggage. Give it to them. Give them that stuff. I give it to them and they left. And we stayed in Canada. They arrested us, believing that we were Russian spies traveling traveling under the.
But anyway, you made your mark.
And we stayed there. And 3 months later, I got a job in Montreal, and we started new life.
Eventually, actually contributed with the glass to the hard drive. And I don't want to spend too much time on that.
It was then after I worked in Canada for 9 years, and in America for another few. We moved from Montreal to Philadelphia, where I saved the company with 3 factories. I fixed them, and they could sell them. We went to West Virginia, to the glass factories, and to New Jersey. And in the meantime, in Kingston, I was hired as a glass scientist to mass manufacture millions of them, millions of those products, which my patents and my invention allowed, because I was able to replace within a few months 350 people with 5 people by mechanizing and automating the process with my gadgets, allowing it.
Little gadgets.
And we had 90% of the world manufacturers or companies trying to make magnetic recording heads or computers and VCRs which needed that product. And there were some weapons also, Trident missile and so on, using that invention. But I didn't invent it, but I was able to turn it into a cheap process, which cost almost nothing to make compared to individual pieces which were making Japanese in white coats and in air purified process, and it was simplified because I was blowing positive ions over the people who and all the dust was flying away. Which means that we outsmarted absolutely everybody. Our product allowed to make our drives, to invent, and it started eventually the computer industry revolution, which has produced a digital age we live in, and allowed to make them cell phones and
everything. Okay.